Welcome to our tutorial on service contracts and work orders featuring QuickBooks Online.
We'll start by logging into the CRM using your assigned user credentials. I am going to start by creating a sales order for a customer that is purchasing our installation services. From the dashboard, I'll use the top left hamburger menu and select New/Create, then New Proposal/Sales Order. Next, I'll choose an example customer from the available list. For the order header, I'll leave most of the default values set, however, I'll go ahead and enter a quick description for the work we'll be performing. Then I'll use the top right green checkmark to save and begin the order detail. Remember always to use the green checkmark or the red X symbol to cancel. I'll choose our part number that indicates this is a job retainer. For this example, our customer will prepay $500 for the installation services. Since we'll be accepting payment right away, I'll use the order conversion icon at the top to convert the proposal to an order. This enables the payment icon, which I'll select and use the screen to indicate we have accepted a $500 check from the customer for the job. Now, I want to tell the CRM to send the invoice and payment to QuickBooks, so I'll use the top left hamburger menu within the order and select the Pack and Ship option to generate the QuickBooks invoice. I'll then use the hamburger menu again and select the Save and Leave Open option so I know everything is saved. Normally, if you place the CRM order into history, the invoice will generate automatically, but I want to leave the order active so I can generate the contract and work order for the job. I'll switch over the QuickBooks and access the customer record so you can see the invoice has transferred over from the CRM with the full payment attached. By the way, the part number I selected in the CRM for the retainer can be any item you choose to set up in QuickBooks. In standard accounting, retainers are not realized revenue, meaning the customer deposit does not count as income until the work has been performed. So you can have your accountant set up a special GL account and part number used to track these funds, and the CRM will automatically debit and credit the retainer as the job progresses. Moving back to the CRM, we're going to create a service contract from within our sales order. From the top left hamburger menu, I'll look for the new linked item and select Create Contract. If your sales order is complex, you can have as many contracts and work orders as needed, since contracts can be assigned to each line in the sales order. We'll keep this one simple and have a single contract for the order. I'll use the green check mark at the top right and the contract will be generated and linked to the sales order item I have selected. Now at the top is a convenient button where we can jump to our newly created contract and finish the setup needed for it. By the way, in the CRM, a service contract is used to control the billing of time and materials, and can also be used to generate recurring charges to the customer if necessary. For this contract, we're going to configure it so precisely $500 worth of labor will be allowed without the customer incurring additional charges. As I mentioned, a contract can be configured to bill the customer on a recurring basis, which we will not be using for this example since the customer has prepaid for services. However, if needed, you can use this section to configure the frequency, amount, and payment methods the CRM will use for recurring billing. What we are more interested in for this example is the service tracking area. At the top, you can choose the in-contract and out-of-contract rate schedules. Rate schedules in the CRM are a preset list of rates used during labor tracking, with in-contract meaning normal labor and out-of-contract meaning after hours, holidays, or weekends. Let me take a quick break and explain a little bit more about the rate schedules. I'll jump over to the CRM dashboard and use the top left hamburger menu to access the master item list containing all of our part numbers. I'll use the top left hamburger menu again to access the rate schedule setup function, called Work with Rate Schedules. You can create as many rate schedules as you like. Each one will act like a labor pricing list to be used during work order billing. Choose one of the schedule entries and move the desired service items from the left to the right to select them, then use the green check mark at the top right to save the schedule. Okay, now we'll jump back and resume our setup of our service contract now that you know how rate schedules work. Remember that the purpose of a CRM contract is to monitor and control labor and material billing. So we'll configure our contract so that it will not cover any parts or materials and will only cover $500 worth of included labor. The great thing about CRM contracts is if parts and materials, or labor over $500 is applied during the job, the CRM will automatically begin invoicing for the overages. For this example, we won't be using warranties or discounts which apply if this contract is used to cover a product they have purchased from us under warranty. I will, however, set the contract to round up the minutes and labor billing to the next 15 minutes, and you can optionally have the contract apply a first increment surcharge to every work order. Next, you can configure how you want overtime to charge. You'll then want to choose a default labor rate that employees will be prompted with during their labor entry, but they can override it with a rate schedule selection if left blank. You'll want to leave credit charges towards contract as yes, which tells the system not to invoice the customer unless they hit overages or uncovered items, and rollover is used if the contract is recurring, which our example is not. The multiple option will close all open work orders for the customer if one of them closes. This is usually left at no. Now, you'll remember our customer has prepaid for service. For accounting, we'll want to enter the retainer part number to use as the job progresses. Finally, we'll use the top right green checkmark to save our contract and return back to our sales order. We're all finished with contracts, so I'll use the red X symbol to close the screen. You can see our line item and has a link to access the contract again if needed. Next, we're going to create our work order for the job. From the top left hamburger menu in the order, we'll look for the new linked item again and this time select the Create Work Order option. You can assign the work order to an employee or leave it unassigned for now, and as before you'll select which order line item to link the work order to. Again, if you have a complex job you can create multiple work orders linked to the various items, but for our example we're keeping it simple. I'll use the green check mark and the CRM will generate the work order. Just like the contract, we have a button to quickly access our new work order. By the way, if it isn't obvious, work orders are the way that actual time and materials are applied to the job as they are performed. Employees will then use the hamburger menu in the work order and use either the service time or parts and supplies option. Let's go ahead and select the service time option and record the time that the employee spent on the job site. Most of the applied time settings can be left at default values. The applies towards contract would only be moved to the no setting if there is some reason the customer is responsible for the labor charge, which isn't common since it was prepaid. Otherwise, a quick entry of the work performed by description, start and stop times, and details should all be filled in. The billable time will auto-calculate based on the start and stop times, but can be overridden to another value if needed. Finally, just enter a few details about the work performed and use the green check mark at the top right to save the labor entry. The labor entry will save and we'll use the red X at the top right to end the data entry for labor items and return to the work order. We can now see our work order refreshes and shows that 3 hours has been applied. You can touch the time value to see the details or edit if needed. Notice the customer balance for the work order is 0, since the service contract is configured to allow up to $500 of labor without additional charges. We can see that the billing detail indicates that the 3 hours of labor, at a cost of $50 per hour, has generated a $150 charge that the contract has absorbed, and we can see that $350 remains on the service contract. These billing numbers are changeable until the work order is marked as closed, so these entries can be edited or deleted to ensure accuracy. To close the work order, we'll use the top left hamburger menu and we'll select the option to close out the work order, which will lock the time and materials applies, so make sure they are correct before proceeding. There are several standard CRM options available during work order closing, such as the ability to set a follow-up with the customer and the ability to create a knowledge article, if you'd like to do so. Otherwise, just use the green checkmark to complete the closing of the work order and the CRM will begin processing the billing automatically. Let's switch over to QuickBooks and I'll explain what just happened behind the scenes when the work order closed. By accessing the customer record in QuickBooks, we'll see a new invoice number that matches the work order number assigned in the CRM, but has a balance of 0. Our labor entry of 3 hours at $50 per hour has been applied, and also an automatic negative line item with a matching amount, which in accounting will draw the retained funds credited earlier and apply them to the job as recognized revenue. If the work order had parts and materials or billable labor, they would be included as part of this invoice that the customer should pay. But in this case, the contract covered everything related to the labor. Let's take a moment and explore the part number used to track the retained funds. Remember that I mentioned you can create any part number to track retained funds in the CRM and QuickBooks, and then use QuickBooks reporting to see the balance of unapplied funds, which should not yet be counted as revenue. I'll use the Run Report option to see the transaction history. I'll see that we have our initial credit, which came from the sale on our original order. I see we have $450 in unrealized funds, which includes the $150 credit we just applied, leaving a $450 liability balance total. Now, we'll go back to the CRM and close the screen related to our work order, which will return us to our sales order, which for this example has completed its life cycle. The sales order is always your one-stop shop, showing you which contracts and work orders are open and processing. You can use the hamburger menu within the sales order to open additional work orders for the next phase of the job, or once everything is completed, use the Send to History option, so that it no longer appears on your open items dashboards. This completes our tutorial on service contracts, work orders, progress invoicing, and retained funds. Thank you for watching.
For more helpful videos, visit our website at www.notia.com.